This video is brought to you by Keeps. Keeps treatments are up to 90% effective at further reducing hair loss. Head to keeps.com/brainfood to learn more and get 50% off your first order. The law is a funny thing, and when it comes to defamation and libel, it's notoriously murky. As such, writers often have to be careful when they're trying to create characters inspired by real people in order to avoid a lawsuit. For those who don't care about that though, there's always the small penis rule. So, how do small penises get you out of such lawsuits? Well, in essence, all you have to do is describe the libelous character as having a penis of comically underwhelming size, the idea being that few men would be willing to sue if it meant having to stand up in court and say that the character in the novel who's seriously deficient in his nether regions is clearly based on them. This is an amazing defense. The earliest mention of the rule can be traced back to a 1998 New York Times article by Denisha Smith, though the description itself is attributed to libel lawyer Leon Friedman, who describes it as a sly trick used by writers looking to avoid a lawsuit for basing a character on someone who portrays them in a less than flattering manner by simply giving them a quality or attribute nobody would want. Yes, indeed, the undesirable trait does not have to be limited to one's manhood, and other techniques for avoiding claims of libel may involve things like giving the character an unsavory personal foible like foul body odor, describing the character as being ugly or overweight, making the character objectively abhorrent by describing them as racist or homophobic, going out of your way to make sure the audience knows the character is into some really kinky things in the bedroom. The idea behind all of these tactics is basically the same. By making the character have one or more traits that nobody would want to be associated with themselves, you can discourage whomever that character happens to be a pastiche of from taking the matter to court. That way, as long as you don't use the person's real name, you'll probably be fine. One minor example of this can be found in a CSI writer who included an almost transparent caricature of two real estate agents he had met into an episode, making sure to make explicit reference to the fact that one of them was addicted to pornography and may have murdered his wife during particularly kinky sex. The names were changed in the final script used for the show, however, not so much in the draft for the script. A much more classic and rather extreme example of this occurred in Michael Crichton's book Next. In it, he describes a character called Mick Crowley, and just a heads up, the next bit is pretty disturbing. Alex Burnett was in the middle of the most difficult trial of her career, a rape case involving the sexual assault of a 2-year-old boy in Malibu. The defendant, 30-year-old Mick Crowley, was a Washington-based political columnist who was visiting his sister-in-law when he experienced an overwhelming urge to have anal sex with her young son, still in diapers. Crowley was a wealthy, spoiled Yale graduate and heir to a pharmaceutical fortune. It turns out Crowley's taste in love objects was well known in Washington, but his lawyer, as was his custom, tried the case vigorously in the press months before the trial, repeatedly characterizing Alex and the child's mother as fantasizing feminist fundamentalists who had made up the whole thing from their sick, twisted imaginations. This despite a well-documented hospital examination of the child. Crowley's penis was small, but he had still caused significant tears to the toddler's rectum. This character, who is of virtually no importance to the overarching plot, is also called a dickhead later in the novel. It turns out Mick Crowley was a very thinly veiled stab at a journalist and Yale graduate called Michael Crowley, who had previously written a scathing review of Crichton. Perhaps the small penis rule worked in this case, as Crowley didn't sue. Instead, he wrote an article in which he stated, among other things, "I confessed having mixed feelings about my sliver of literary immortality. It's impossible not to be grossed out on some level, particularly by the creepy image of the smouldering Crichton alone in his darkened study, imagining in pornographic detail the rape of a small child. It's uplifting, however, to learn that Next sales have proved disappointing by Crichton standards, continuing what an industrious newsletter dubs Crichton's recent pattern of erosion. And I'm looking forward to the choice Crichton will have to make when asked about the basis for Mick Crowley between a comically dishonest denial and a confession of his shocking depravity." Crichton launched his noxious attack from behind the shield of the small penis rule because, I'm sure, he's embarrassed by what he has done. In researching my article, I found a man who has long yearned for intellectual stature beyond the realm of killer dinosaurs and talking monkeys, and Crichton must know that turning a critic into a poorly endowed child rapist won't exactly aid his cause. Ultimately then, I find myself strangely flattered. To explain why, let me propose a corollary to the small penis rule. Call it the small small man rule. If someone offers substantive criticism of an author and the author responds by hitting below the belt, as it were, then he's conceding that the critic has won. And speaking of winning, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Keeps. Did you know that 2 out of every 3 guys will experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35? I'm not 35. I started losing my hair at 25. In fact, it was mostly gone by the time I was 25. But I wish Keeps had been around when I was younger because, it's too late for me. But advancements in science have meant that there are now treatments that can combat the symptoms of hair loss and help you keep the hair you have. So the thing is, my hair isn't coming back, but it's not too late for you. Also, you don't have to go broke doing it because this is medicine. You're probably assuming it's pretty expensive, but it's not. It starts at just $10 a month, and you can also get a prescription shampoo to keep your scalp healthy. So that's a good thing. Notice this hasn't been used, because, like I say, it's too late for me. So how does it work? Well, there's no need to visit a doctor's office, just have an online consult and then a discreet package arrives at your door, and you can use it in the privacy of your own home. Obviously. Prevention is key, otherwise this would be a really weird ad. Now if you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/brainfood to get 50% off your first order again. keeps.com/brainfood. And now for some bonus facts. Speaking of small penises, ever wonder if hand and foot size really correlate with penile length? Well, wonder no more. It turns out that studies have consistently shown that the size of a guy's feet or the overall size of their hands is not related to their member's erect measurement. However, a man's fingers do give a strong clue as to their probable penis size, but the overall length of the fingers is not what's important here. Instead, as illustrated in a study published in the Asian Journal of Andrology in 2011, it's the ratio between the second and fourth digits on the hand that strongly correlates with the overall length of an individual's penis. Really? Seconds and This is so strange. As Dr. Ho Choi et al. States, univariate and multivariate analysis using linear regression models showed that only digit ratio was a significant predictive factor for stretched penile length. Stretched penile length. Okay. In a nutshell, the lower the ratio, how much shorter the index finger is than the ring finger, the longer the penis will probably be when erect. Okay. And if you're wondering here, studies show flaccid penis length is not an accurate predictor of erect penis length. More specifically, you can calculate your ratio by taking the length of your index finger, measured from the crease where it meets your hand to the tip, and divide it by the length of your ring finger. The shorter your index finger compared to the ring finger, the lower the ratio will be, and if you're a man, the longer your penis probably is. So why does the ratio of the index and ring finger lengths correlate to erect penis length? Is there possibly a reason for this? I guess there must be, but that's amazing. In the beginning, female and male genitals are pretty much the same. This is because they develop from the same cluster of tissues, gonads. In males, somewhere around week 7 to 9 of gestation, the gonads begin secreting 2 hormones. Anti-Müllerian hormone, AMH, and testosterone. AMH prevents the development of the ducts that eventually turn into the fallopian tubes, the uterus, and the upper vagina. Once the gonads begin secreting testosterone, some of it, around 5 to 10%, gets transformed into another hormone called dihydrotestosterone, which we've discussed at length in our rather interesting video, Do Beards Really Grow Faster in the Winter, and Why Bald Men Grow Better Beards, which I'll link to below. But in short, with regards to the topic at hand, both testosterone and dihydrotestosterone will attach to androgen receptors, which affect the growth and development of many different body systems. Notable here, dihydrotestosterone attaches to androgen receptors on tissues that eventually develop and combine into the penis and scrotum. Low levels of this within the womb or later during puberty may result in an underdeveloped or malformed penis. So to sum up this part of things, penile growth in the womb is stimulated and affected by testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, and androgen receptors. Circulating amounts of the 2 hormones combined with the associated androgen receptor stimulation will determine penis size. So what about fingers? Circulating testosterone in the womb will affect other body parts as well, pertinent to the topic at hand, including the ratio between the second and fourth digits, index and ring fingers. So why does testosterone affect digits differently? For that, we have to get a little more technical, but essentially the activity mediated by androgen receptors and estrogen receptor A is higher in your ring finger compared to your index finger. This is regulated by the structure of genes controlling the process for the bone growth of your fingers called endochronal ossification. ossification. The spread of chondrocytes will determine the length of your finger, and this expansion is higher in the ring finger compared to the index finger. When you decrease the activation of androgen receptors during the narrow window of digit development, usually completed by week 13 of gestation, you will decrease the length of your ring finger. This activation is attributed to the amount of testosterone and DHT circulating throughout the tiny fetus. Conversely, if you decrease the activity of the receptor estrogen A, the one being stimulated more when you're female, you will get a longer ring finger. Based on this physiology, it has long been known that you can predict prenatal hormone exposure based on the ratio of these two fingers. Since both penile length and the ratio of the ring and index finger is basically a result of the amount of testosterone and DHT circulating in utero, there is a correlation between that ratio and the length of a man's favorite appendage. As you might have guessed from this, the ratio between the lengths of one's index finger and ring fingers is usually quite different in men and women. Men tend to have shorter index fingers than ring fingers. Women tend to have their index fingers either the same length or longer than their ring fingers. Oh yeah. Finally, penile length isn't the only thing digit ratio can predict. Since testosterone and DHT control the development of several body systems and processes, digit ratio can be a predictor of a wide range of physiological and psychological conditions. These include things like athletic ability, sexual orientation, fertility, and some sex-based ailments such as prostate and uterine problems. Lower digit ratios tend to occur in people with more aggressive behaviors, and those with them are less likely to suffer from eating disorders. People with higher digit ratios tend to be more agreeable. Research has also indicated that straight women and gay men who have higher ratios tend to prefer partners who are more masculine. And so I really hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do smash that thumbs up button below. Don't forget to check out our fantastic sponsor, Keeps, link below. Thank you for watching.